Welcome, beloved ones. Something in the unseen has shifted and heaven is leaning in as you press play. This is not a random scroll, not background noise or just another video. This is a divine interruption, a pause in your timeline, a message heaven has reserved for God's chosen ones. If your spirit feels that quiet trembling, it's because this word was never meant for the crowd. It is for the remnant, the ones who walked through wilderness, heartbreak, and silent warfare, yet refused to curse the light. You have stood at locked gates, at thresholds that wouldn't open, wondering if you misheard God. But hear this, the cycle is shifting. The oil on your life is entering a season. Heaven is sending someone placed by God to stand as evidence that you were right, that you were chosen. It is a declaration of reversal and vindication. Doors are opening. Stay with me to the end. A deeper layer of this revelation will unfold. If your spirit agrees, type 767 in the comments. Subscribe or sow a super thanks as an act of faith. A yes in spirit. Your proof is coming. Your name is clearing. God's chosen ones rise. God's chosen ones, when heaven sends someone to prove you were right. You, chosen one, there has always been a pattern, even when no one wanted to see it. For years you tried to explain, to clarify, to put the same pieces on the table again and again, and they looked at you with polite knees and closed spirits, as if blindness was easier than honesty. They chose comfort over clarity, a smooth lie over a costly truth, and you started to wonder if you were crazy for seeing what you saw. But heaven did not leave you there. Quietly in the background of your story, God was raising one person whose eyes would not be lulled to sleep, one ally who would refuse to be seduced by popularity, fear, or the loudness of the crowd. This person did not fall for performance or charisma. They watched something deeper, the way your story never shifted, the way your details held steady, the way your reactions stayed aligned even under pressure. At the same time, they watched your accusers. Every time the heat rose, their version changed. Their timelines trembled, their details cracked. The contrast became impossible to ignore, like a heartbeat on a monitor that will not lie. Just as Joseph's brothers could not hide the torn coat forever, there comes a point where the evidence in the Father's hands speaks louder than every accusation. Slowly, your allies started tracing this heartbeat. They looked at message logs, dates, reactions, who said what and when. They watched how certain people always appeared where confusion was. How the same personalities hovered around every storm attached to your name. Like a careful investigator, they followed the trail others avoided. Think of a scientist running the same experiment dozens of times, watching the same data points show up until the pattern can no longer be dismissed as coincidence. That is what began to happen around your life, pattern, until denial became harder than acceptance. And here is the part that might make your spirit tremble a little. What if you were never too much, never too sensitive, but simply the first one to see what everyone else was pretending wasn't there? Your truth did not convince this ally. Your enemy's mistakes did. They watched lies grow sloppy. Dates didn't match. Stories contradicted themselves in small ways that only a focused eye would catch. Screenshots disappeared and then mysteriously resurfaced. Conversations returned with edits, tone shifts, missing lines. The more your enemies tried to control the narrative, the more fingerprints they left on it. Like the religious leaders who twisted testimony against Jesus in the night only to break their own law in the process, the very effort to destroy truth became evidence of how afraid they were of it. Your allies saw it, and something holy in them got offended, not by you, but by the disrespect shown to truth itself. They did what no one else bothered to do. They checked. They didn't just nod along to your pain. They cross-referenced your words with reality. They compared timestamps. They revisited old calls. They looked again at what everyone else dismissed as drama. The details you once apologized for mentioning became the very keys that unlocked the whole picture. And while others let the story fade from memory, this ally let it sharpen. In the same way, an art lover stands before a painting by Van Gogh and finally realizes he was never mad. He was ahead of his time. Your ally began to see that you were not unstable, you were early accurate and inconvenient. They were not moved by pity, they were moved by precision. The more they saw, the heavier their spirit felt, because now they carried knowledge, and knowledge demands responsibility. The evidence did more than clear your name. It exposed intention. Suddenly it was not just, "This is what happened to you," but "This is why they needed it to happen this way." Power, fear, envy, control, like roots under the soil, motives started showing through the cracks. Your ally saw how certain people shaped conversations to protect their image, how they weaponized silence, how they used group perception as a shield. It echoed the warning of the prophet Isaiah: "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil," a system where twisting definitions becomes a survival tactic. And here you, chosen one, is one of the most uncomfortable questions heaven is pressing into your heart. Have you been blaming yourself for reactions that were never about your worth, but about the threat your truth posed to someone else's throne? This realization awakened something in your ally. It wasn't sentimental loyalty, it was moral outrage. Their conscience, trained quietly over years, finally refused to sit down. They chose principle over politeness, even knowing that standing with you might cost them comfort, connections, or reputation. They could not unknow what they now knew. It reminded them of stories they had read of those who stood up in dark times, like the witnesses who later admitted that during Socrates' trial, the real threat was not his questions, but the way his questions exposed the insecurity of those in power. Courage dormant for years rose in them. Your situation became their moment of awakening. They understood that remaining passive was not neutral, it was participation. They counted the cost. If they speak, some doors might close. If they stay silent, their own soul will. And so they moved, not dramatically at first, small steps, quiet documentation, careful saving of messages, screenshots, timelines. They began to build an arc of evidence around your story, not to drown anyone, but to preserve truth in a world flooding with spin. Each file, each note, each remembered conversation became part of a structure that would outlast opinions. In a way, they lived the words of a modern psychologist who said, "The body keeps the score." They realized that truth also keeps the score, and it needed someone willing to write it down. As they gathered these pieces, something else became clear. The silence around you had not been natural. It was curated. They saw how certain people changed the subject whenever your name came up. How laughter covered discomfort, how "let's not talk about that" became a spell to keep others from seeing what was obvious. That wasn't peace, it was control. Indifference was a costume for fear, and your ally, now wide awake, refused to play along. They began to challenge that silence, gently at first, then more boldly. They asked questions in rooms where your story had been twisted. They refused to agree with half-truths. They brought up the pieces everyone was pretending not to remember. Some people grew uncomfortable, even angry, because control hates honest questions. So let me ask you, chosen one, if silence has been carefully managed around your name, was the problem ever really you, or the exposure your very existence brings at the right time? Divine timing, not rushed, not delayed. This ally stumbled onto something. Your enemies never planned for a piece of evidence, a message, a record, a detail they didn't know still existed. Quiet, almost ordinary, but devastating in its clarity. It was like finding a forgotten page in a journal where the truth was written in the handwriting of the one who lied. With that discovery, everything aligned. The story that once depended on emotion now had a document, a thread that tied contradictions into confession. Suddenly, those who doubted you weren't just faced with your testimony, they were faced with reality itself standing in front of them like an open grave that refused to stay covered. Your ally knew this changed the game. They had not been collecting proof to create drama. They were stewarding a trust. And now, with the pattern undeniable and the evidence undeniable, they understood their role differently. They were no longer just on your side. They were guardians of a narrative heaven refused to let be stolen. They stepped forward not as a savior, but as a witness. They knew their support could not rewrite the pain you endured, the sleepless nights, the tears you hid, the relationships that crumbled because people chose the easier story. But they also knew this: while the past cannot be undone, the meaning of that past could be radically redefined. The false version of you, fragile, untrustworthy, too much, began to disintegrate as truth took the microphone. Think of a public figure who was mocked for warning about hidden corruption, only for documents years later to prove they had been telling the truth from the very beginning. History rarely apologizes aloud, but it quietly rewrites who the real fool was. That is the kind of shift heaven is writing over your timeline. This ally is not doing this because you are weak. They are doing it because you are important. Your story is a case study in how God protects truth over time. Your battle has become their classroom. Through you, they are learning what real integrity costs and what it looks like when God waits to vindicate someone until the evidence is so overwhelming that denial becomes self-condemnation. Inside all of this, a deeper lesson is unfolding in your own heart: that your value was never dependent on whether people believed you, and that your identity as God's chosen one was never on trial, even when your story was. The proof now rising to the surface doesn't just say you were right. It says you were pure in your intent and heaven saw it. Your ally has seen the cost you paid, the job opportunities that faded, the friendships that cooled, the rooms where your name grew heavy, and they are stunned that you still chose honesty. That has changed them forever. And you too are being changed. Somewhere inside, the roar is softening into a grounded, holy calm. What once was a desperate need to be understood is becoming a quiet knowing you were seen all along. In a fictional city of glass towers, imagine a quiet archivist who spends years collecting hidden records of injustices until one day the light hits the towers at just the right angle and every hidden file reflects outwards for the whole city to see. That archivist chosen one is the ally heaven sent into your story. Now the question shifts from will anyone ever believe me to what will I do with my voice now that God has proved I was never crazy, only called? This is the turning of the season. What was meant to bury you has become the soil in which your credibility will grow. The same evidence that clears your name confirms your character. Your restraint, your refusal to gossip, your choosing prayer over revenge. These choices now glow in hindsight. You, chosen one. You are becoming a living parable, a walking painting like those in the great galleries where people stand in silence because they sense that something in the brushstrokes is speaking of a world beyond this one. And as your story unfolds, heaven is not just vindicating you for you. You are being positioned as a sign, a marker, a living contradiction to a world that rewards spin over substance. Others will watch what happens when truth is allowed to finish its work, and they will find courage to step out of their own shadows. So breathe. The war over your name is not the headline of your life. The glory of what God is doing in your character is. Let your heart unclench. Let your shoulders drop. You have been carrying a case that heaven has already ruled on. Now, as this ally steps fully into their role and as evidence takes its rightful place, you are being invited into a new chapter, not driven by the need to prove, but led by the call to shine. If this word finds you, if something in you burns or breaks or suddenly feels seen, I invite you to share it. Write your story, your questions, your ache in the open, so other chosen ones know they are not alone. In your own way, testify in the comments, in your conversations, in your prayers. Because as you share, you join the great chorus of those who refuse to bow to convenient lies. This is your vindication, but it is also your awakening. You, chosen one, you are not just surviving the narrative, you are rewriting it with heaven. You, chosen one. What if I told you that your story has never just been playing out in rooms, group chats, and whispers on earth, but inside a courtroom in heaven, where every word, every tear, every accusation has been recorded with perfect precision? What if the reason things felt so unfair, so lopsided, so tilted against you for so long is because the real verdict over your life was never being decided down here but had already been written in a higher court before anyone ever put your name in their mouth? This is the mystery you are walking into now. Your life has not just been drama, it has been a trial, and heaven has kept the receipts. There is a judge seated holy, just not swayed by popularity or power. There is an accuser who loves to bring charges, distort facts, replay your worst moments, and magnify your smallest mistakes. There is an advocate, a defender who bears scars in his hands and speaks on your behalf. And there is you, standing in the middle, feeling like every eye is on your failures, every voice is louder than your own, wondering if anyone sees the truth beneath the noise. For a long time, you thought the battle was just horizontal. You versus them, your word against theirs, your memory against their manipulation. But heaven is now showing you the vertical picture. Before any earthly confrontation, before any rumor spread, your case was already filed in the courts of the Almighty. Scripture whispers this reality when it describes the enemy as the accuser of the brethren, constantly bringing charges, constantly presenting evidence against God's people. Yet in the same breath, we see a greater reality, the Son standing as advocate, the blood speaking a better word, the judge who cannot be bribed or blinded. You, chosen one. You have been living through the earthly echo of a heavenly courtroom, and now you are stepping into the moment when heaven's verdict begins to manifest in your visible world. Think back on your journey, the seasons where you told the truth and still lost. The conversations where you explained yourself until your voice shook, but people smiled politely and later repeated the same distorted story. The times when your name walked into rooms before you did. Dressed in rumors you never agreed to wear. The nights you stared at the ceiling and wondered if I am really chosen. Why does my reality look like a punishment? You walked into workplaces, friendships, families, even spiritual communities where your integrity was questioned, your motives dissected, your pain dismissed as too sensitive or too much. What you did not see was that while people rolled their eyes at your side of the story, angels were recording every word of theirs while you were apologizing for your emotions. Heaven was archiving evidence. While you felt abandoned, the advocate was building a case in your favor that would one day overturn everything spoken against you. In the divine courtroom, time does not dull truth, it sharpens it. Demonstrations of character matter more than performances of image. Consistency matters more than charisma. That is why your repeated yes to honesty, even when it cost you, has not been ignored. Your choice not to retaliate, not to gossip in return, not to expose people with screenshots when you had all the ammunition you needed, that has all been registered as testimony of your character. Every time you chose to cry to God instead of clap back online, every time you chose to pray instead of plot, you were presenting evidence in the highest court without even knowing it. You thought you were just swallowing pain. Heaven saw you sowing credibility. The divine courtroom is not fast in human terms, but it is precise. Down here, liars can gather quickly, weave a narrative, repeat it until it sounds true. Up there, the judge watches cycles, patterns, motives. Earth looks at a single moment. Heaven weighs the storyline. That is why in your story, nothing seemed to happen for so long, and then suddenly everything began to shift. An ally woke up. Someone who had stayed mostly neutral, who once skimmed across the surface, started to feel a disturbance in their spirit. They began to notice the pattern everyone else pretended not to see. Your story stayed the same, your details stayed steady, your reactions stayed aligned. Meanwhile, those who accused you kept adjusting, revising, backtracking. Where others saw drama, this ally began to see evidence. Where others shrugged, they started digging. They checked old messages. They remembered who said what and when. They recalled jokes that didn't sit right at the time but make sense now. They saw how certain people always went quiet when the full truth came too close. Suddenly, they realized they were not just a bystander. They were a witness being called to the stand in a case heaven had already opened. You may think this is just psychology, but it is deeper than that. In the divine courtroom, heaven often uses human witnesses to carry out what has already been decreed. Just as prophets on earth echo decisions made in heaven, this ally in your life is echoing the verdict the judge already reached, that you were telling the truth, that you were mishandled, that your name was smeared illegally. Their conviction did not begin in their emotions. It began in a holy irritation in their conscience. It is as if God laid a weight on their spirit. You cannot unsee this. You cannot unknow this. You must respond. So they do something rare in this generation. They slow down enough to verify. They look where no one else bothered to look. They treat your side of the story not as gossip, but as a case file. And as they piece together the fragments, something aligns with shocking clarity. The divine courtroom has reached the phase of manifestation. What was only known in heaven is now being revealed on earth. The evidence that once lived only in hidden places begins to surface in their hands. A screenshot someone forgot they sent a message thread. Someone thought they deleted a timeline that exposes lies. A memory that contradicts a carefully groomed narrative. Like puzzle pieces falling into place, the picture comes into focus, and it becomes obvious that the accuser's case is full of holes. The same way Daniel described books being opened in a heavenly vision. Your life is stepping into a moment where the books over your story are being opened, records, receipts, every attempt to twist silence or frame you. And what those books show is not just what happened, but why it happened. Insecurity disguised as concern, envy disguised as discernment, control disguised as care. This is where the divine courtroom is different from human courts. It does not just judge outward actions, it weighs intentions. That is why this season feels so heavy and holy at the same time. You sense that God is not just dealing with what was said about you. He is dealing with the spirit that used your situation as a stage. You, chosen one, have you noticed how certain people start to feel suddenly uncomfortable around you, even if you say nothing? Have you felt the atmosphere change when your name is mentioned? Like the air itself knows there is a verdict coming. That is what it feels like when heaven's court moves from deliberation to enforcement. Under this weight, your ally makes a choice that shifts everything. They step out of the safety of silence and stand beside you. They risk being labeled biased, emotional, divisive. They risk losing seats at tables, losing proximity to powerful personalities, losing the approval of those who built the false narrative. But they stand anyway because something in them loves truth more than comfort. In the divine courtroom, they have accepted their assignment as a witness, and their testimony carries weight precisely because they did not rush into it. They took time. They watched. They doubted themselves at first, questioned if they were seeing clearly, and only spoke when the evidence became too strong to deny. This is not random. Heaven loves to choose reluctant but honest witnesses, people who are not driven by a need for drama but a need for integrity. Their support of you is not flattery, it is alignment with heaven's verdict. They may not use spiritual language, but in the unseen they are saying amen to what the judge has already spoken over your life. At this point, something holy begins to happen inside you too. For so long you wanted one thing to be believed. You thought that if people finally saw the truth, the ache in your chest would disappear. But as this divine courtroom begins to rule in your favor, you discover a deeper healing. It's not just that your story is being cleared, your identity is being restored. You start to realize, I was never what they said I was. I was never the villain. I was never insane. I was never dramatic. I was simply carrying a truth this system could not handle. This realization is not just emotional, it is spiritual. It is heaven lifting labels off your shoulders, tearing up the false reports written over your name, and handing you a new document stamped with a seal that cannot be revoked, beloved. chosen, vindicated, trusted with truth. From the divine courtroom's perspective, your suffering was not wasted. Every injustice you endured has become part of your authority. Now, when you speak about integrity, it will not come from theory but from experience. When you talk about gaslighting, manipulation, spiritual abuse, or betrayal, there will be weight on your words because you have survived them with your spirit intact. God is not only clearing you, He is commissioning you. In the same way He used Joseph, whose coat was stained with lies, but whose character was preserved in prison. God is preparing to use you as a voice in places where truth has been muzzled. And yes, your ally is part of that calling too. Their courage is being awakened. Your battle is birthing their assignment. Together you become living evidence that the divine courtroom is real, that heaven really does defend those who refuse to compromise their integrity even when it costs them everything. So now the question shifts you. Chosen one, what will you do with this vindication? Will you spend your days trying to clap back and prove people wrong, or will you step into a higher posture, one where you let God's verdict speak for itself and you focus on carrying the anointing that all this warfare was trying to crush? This is not about pretending it didn't hurt. It did. Heaven knows. Heaven recorded every moment, but the judge who has ruled in your favor is now inviting you into rest, into a deeper trust. You no longer have to be your own defender. I have already ruled. Let me handle the enforcement. In that trust, there is peace for your nervous system, quiet for your thoughts, space for your calling to unfold. The divine courtroom has not only cleared your case, it has freed your future. If your spirit feels this, if something in you whispers, "This is my story," then you are not here by accident. You were led to this word because heaven wanted you to know you were never crazy, never alone, never unseen. You were in court the whole time. The judge has ruled, the advocate has spoken, the books have been opened, the accuser has been overruled, your name is being washed, your character is being established, your assignment is being unlocked. Now I invite you as a prophetic act of agreement to share your story, your questions, your ache, or even just a simple "I receive this" as a witness to what heaven is doing in you. As you speak, you are not just commenting on a video, you are stepping to the stand and saying, "I agree with heaven's verdict over my life." And in that agreement, the verdict of the divine courtroom will echo louder than any lie ever spoken against you. As we close this word, I want you to remember this: heaven's highest court has already ruled in your favor. The judge has seen every tear, every misunderstanding, every false report, and still calls you vindicated, beloved, and trusted with truth. You are not walking into victory hoping it might happen. You are walking out a verdict that has already been written over your life. Your assignment now is not to prove yourself, but to live as one whom God Himself has cleared, protected, and commissioned. If this message has resonated with your spirit, I invite you to respond not just as a viewer, but as a witness. Like this video, share it with another chosen one who needs to know their case is in God's hands, and comment your testimony or simply "I agree with heaven's verdict" so your agreement is sealed in the open. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next revelations heaven is pouring out in this season. And to those who feel led to sow, a super thank you. Your support is seen and deeply appreciated, but whether you give or not, you are loved, valued, and covered. I bless you with clarity, with holy courage, and with deep rest in the justice of God over your life. May His peace guard your heart, may His verdict silence every lie, and may His presence go before you in every room you enter. God bless you, chosen one.